comes first, a roar that no one recognizes, a crack like a giant bone snapping, and then it appears, a wave taller than a house, rolling forward with the speed of a horse in full sprint. Not water, not mud, but thick, dark molasses, sweet and deadly. People scream. Horses whinny and try to pull away. Windows shatter like thin ice. In the middle of a quiet winter afternoon, Boston becomes a nightmare, and every second feels slower, stickier, harder to survive. But this moment of terror did not appear from nowhere. It was building for years, hiding inside a huge metal tank that everyone chose to ignore. Back then, molasses was more than something you drizzle on warm bread. It was money. It was war. Factories turned molasses into alcohol used for weapons and supplies in the First World War. It was so valuable that a company called the United States Industrial Alcohol Company rushed to build a giant storage tank right in the heart of Boston's North End, a neighborhood filled with families, children, shops, and horses. The tank was terrifying in size. It stood over 5 stories high, wide enough to swallow a city house whole. Inside, it was more than 2 million gallons of dark syrup, equal to about 3 giant swimming pools filled not with water, but with something as thick as honey straight from the fridge. People walking past would tilt their heads up to look at it, like a new monster added to the skyline. Children loved it. They would lick the sticky molasses that oozed down the sides, giggling like they had found a secret candied treasure. But the adults, they heard things, groans, pops, creaks, metal complaining. Workers said they could feel the tank tremble when the wind blew. Some claimed they could push a finger into cracks that formed in the steel. The warnings were there. Everyone felt them. No one with power listened. The company did not want to stop business. They did not want to spend more money. So when leaks appeared, they simply painted the metal dark brown, as if a coat of paint could erase a broken promise. Cover it up and keep moving. No one will notice. Nothing will go wrong until the winter day when everything did. It was January in the year 1919. The air was cold enough to make breath look like tiny ghosts. People had just finished lunch. Kids chased each other near the docks. Horses pulled carts over cobblestone streets. Firefighters at the nearby station drank warm coffee. It was just another ordinary day until it became a day that Boston would never forget. A sharp blast like a gunshot. Then a sound like the city itself was tearing apart. The tank ripped open. Molasses, warm from inside the metal walls, suddenly met the freezing air outside. It thickened in seconds. It first moved like water, bursting outward with angry speed. But then it turned into glue. Deep, heavy glue that clung to everything and dragged it down. A wall of syrup as tall as 2 floors came roaring through the streets at about 35 miles an hour, faster than any human could ever run. It crushed a curious young boy who had been watching horses from the corner. It lifted a man named Anthony DeStasio and carried him through the street like a helpless doll, stuffing his mouth and nose with sweetness that choked. It shoved firefighters under broken wood and twisted metal, leaving only their hands sticking out, reaching up through the goo for help that could barely reach them. Horses fought and screamed as the sticky wave pulled at their legs. Strong animals, the pride of the working city, became statues in the street, unable to lift even one hoof. The molasses slowed everything. But the fear was fast. No one understood what was happening. One moment you could breathe. The next, syrup sealed your lips shut. Rescuers tried to run into the chaos, but every step sucked them into the ground. Boots glued, hands slippery, tools stuck. Some people heard faint voices under the mess, crying for help. Others heard silence, which was worse. When night fell, the city smelled like a giant candy shop mixed with panic. Families waited, hoping someone would return home out of the darkness. Hoping a friend, or a child, or a father would appear, covered in molasses, but alive. But the truth was too thick to escape. 21 people would never go home again. More than 150 would carry scars and memories of being trapped in something meant to be harmless. The kind of memory that wakes you up at night, gasping, feeling sweetness turn into fear. And even as rescuers fought to save the living, another battle began to rise. The question of why. Why did a tank so big and so dangerous sit in the middle of a neighborhood? Why had the company ignored the warnings that everyone could hear and see and smell? The company had answers. They blamed terrorists. They blamed strange weather. They blamed anything except themselves. But people in Boston could still smell the truth, literally. The sticky scent of molasses clung to the streets, to clothes, to walls, to hair. Boston would spend months scraping the syrup from every surface. Salt water from the harbor was used to wash away what it could, turning the seawater brown. Even years later, on hot summer days, the smell would return like a ghost. Sweet, heavy, impossible to forget. But the biggest part of the story was not the cleanup. It was not the lawsuits. It was not even the safety rules that would later be created because of this disaster. The biggest part was the secret inside the tank. The thing that made it explode with such power. Inside, the molasses had been warm, fresh from a ship, too fresh. And the steel walls built to hold it in were too thin, too rushed, too careless. No one had tested the tank. No real engineer had given it a stamp of approval. It was a giant, ticking bomb made of dessert, and that bomb had finally gone off. But this is not the end of the story, because after the tank is silent, after the screaming stops, and after the streets freeze into a sticky grave, someone looks closer. Someone notices something everyone else missed. And when they finally discover what it is, everything about the disaster changes. What did they find buried in the syrup? Who tried to hide the truth? And why did no one fix the warnings until it was too late? The answers are coming, and they're even stickier than the flood